We did help steal a bunch of oil, right? We still have to recompensate them for that over
When
there.
you say steal, what do you mean?
What does it even mean to be a Canadian?
The Canadian dream, it's a privilege, right? It's a privilege that is based on privileges.
The visualization of this is to be able to have the house with the white picket fence. Well, the problem with that vision is that it's an old vision.
Invited 7 people to debate if the Canadian dream is alive. We expected a 50-50 split. We were wrong.
I believe the Canadian dream is dead.
I think the Canadian dream is dead.
Canadian dream is dead.
Is lined up in the ER.
I think it's going closer to unalive.
Is slowly slipping away from us.
Since nobody believes the dream is alive, we changed the experiment. Today, we find out who killed it.
The Canadian dream as it's defined is very similar to what the Americans have, right? The visualization of this is to be able to have the house with the white picket fence, the wife, 2 cars in the garage, couple kids, and well, the problem with that vision is that it's an old vision. There's a lot of rot within our government and society, or in society, I think there's some issues with that.
I think the telltale sign of a place that is happy is excitement and hope. And a lot of us haven't felt that in a while, not while we're here.
The Canadian dream, it's a privilege, right? It's a privilege that is based on privileges. And I feel like the intersectionality between like our Charter of Rights and our privileges, I feel like we cannot uphold a good social standard to a point where it's like we don't have enough jobs for everyone.
We've lost the plot, every single person. What does it even mean to be a Canadian? And I think that's being tested to the brim right now because there's so much division, which I believe shouldn't be the case. But sadly, because of a lot of the systemic changes, how things are playing out up top.
You know, it's getting tougher for the average Canadian to get by. Living expenses are continuing to increase. As much as we're all making our efforts to try to do our best to get ahead, it's just becoming harder across the board.
Our government is spending way too much on foreign aid. Our government is spending way too much on social programs. As beneficial as they are, and as intertwined with society as they are, we're spending too much money that we don't have.
As someone who was born and raised in Canada, and as a Gen Z, I find that the Canadian dream is dead because what's happening in our society and in our country is not healthy for the future of this Canadian dream that we so call it. And I think that it's really interesting how nowadays we're more aware of what's going on around us and what's not okay versus what is okay.
I believe the Canadian dream is dead because it's a lot more harder to get by these days. Among the G7 and G20 nations, Canada has the least productive workforce. I mean, that's an indicator that everything is wrong with the Canadian system, everything is wrong with the Canadian dream, and it's very, very much dead.
If you're not thriving in Canada, you're simply not trying hard enough.
Yeah, no.
I think we're all going to be.
Okay.
We're all disagreeing.
We're all disagreeing.
I do know that previous generations like to criticize the younger generation for the fact that we don't work hard enough or we're not putting in forth the effort or as much as it should. A lot of the younger generation now, we're more educated than ever before in previous history. A lot of us work in professional fields, and even then, the wages haven't really kept up, in the last, many decades now. Unfortunately, the wages simply haven't been able to keep up, regardless of whether you're working as, a grocery clerk or whether you're working in a professional field. It's almost like only the most elite class can be able to have the privilege of being able to buy a home. And then, the rest of us who earn a modest but decent income, where we are left to rent.
Immigrants are part of the problem.
Why do you guys think that they're part of the problem?
This is funny because I'm an immigrant. That's funny, right? Because I've only been here for over 2 years. I immigrated from another country, from the Philippines. But my perspective on it is that immigrants are part of the problem because your job as an immigrant when you move over here is you're supposed to assimilate to the culture. I understand bringing your culture over. That's who you are, right? But the beauty of immigration is that you're supposed to be able to bring your culture in while also respecting the culture of the country that you're part of. But the problem is that some immigrants have a tendency of being closed-minded and not exactly wanting to assimilate. They may struggle at the same time, which honestly is more systemic than anything because they're not given the proper avenues to be able to properly assimilate themselves into the country.
I also want to add a point to that too, is that we have systems within the government, and this does go into the diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, meritocracy is one thing. I think a lot of us agree that you should get into a workplace on merit, but the government will actually financially support employers to hire these new immigrants. Right. So the employer's actually paying them less, and then the government subsidizing the remainder of the wage. So I don't think it's with ill intent. They're just trying to survive just like us, but because of the system we have, it undermines people that grew up here.
It's on that analogy, it's like Canada's a dam, right? Like the system is a dam. And you need to let some people in, otherwise you collapse. We've seen what happens in East Asia. But what you cannot do is grow reliant on a new voter base that you can just import from anywhere else. There's a lot of countries with a lot of problems. And there will always be incentive for those people to do anything that they can legally, because that's their first option. Nobody wants to be an illegal immigrant anyway. Like legal is the first pick for anyone, right?
And our infrastructure just can't support the amount of immigration we have. I'm not saying to stop immigration, but just the Liberal government is bringing in so many people that we don't have enough hospitals, we don't have enough buildings and houses and any other sort of important industry and infrastructure to support the populace.
As a young generation like us, we've been discussing how tuition is increasing, whether it's local or international. It's getting harder for parents to be able to support your children, or for us, we have to work these minimum wage jobs or whatever jobs we can to try to be able to pay for our school, so we graduate with as minimal debt as possible. But then, because of the cost with school and the cost with increased rents, as I mentioned, when the mayor of Vancouver, Ken Sim, announced a 10% property tax increase, which drives up the cost for landlords, which then passes on to us tenants, as most of us young generation are renters. Then it makes us harder to save up for a down payment. And a lot of us don't want to have children raising a child in a one-bedroom apartment when we grew up with our parents living in detached homes with our own rooms, with our siblings having our own rooms. So because of that, because the young generation are not having children, well, then the government has to make up for that deficit by bringing in significant immigration. And this is why we see a lot of immigrants now working the majority of the minimum wage jobs because the government needs that taxpayer base.
I absolutely hear what you're saying. I think that it's really interesting when you look at the structural sort of form of the government and what immigration has done to this country. And so I don't think that immigration is an issue per se, because I think that Canada needs a workforce, and a part of that is immigration, and that helps with that. But there are problems that are arising because of housing shortages and life that happens because of immigrants that are coming here. So I think that it's more of a structural issue than a personal issue. And I think that it's really important to realize that it's not just based on what you were back in your home country and what you're doing here. It's more about what happened to our workforce and why is it so depleted, and why do we need to fill these positions with immigration?
That's a distraction, right? That's a distraction they give you. What is the moral code behind this? The issue is that the government could very easily fix this problem for every party involved. If you only bring skilled labor into the country, the problems that everyone's been having just disappears. It's very hard to find a skilled worker if you ask for the proper credentials, and there's no incentives for government officials to let people do it through means that are not quite illegal, but come quite close to it.
So we just argued about who belongs here in Canada, but honestly, the way to find out is to test it.
Which province is known for its red sand beaches?
Is that what I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which province has the largest freshwater lakes? Ontario? Oh, jeez.
1925. 1965.
Yep.
BC?
No?
Oh, Canada.
Easy.
No, Quebec City.
1974.
This is How Canadian Are You? By the Fun HQ. 240 questions, challenges, and a timer to expose your friends. Grab yours at thefunhq.com. Link in the description.
Canadians first.
I actually agree. Agree with that. Actually agree with that.
Sorry, I think we're on the line.
Good luck, bro.
Oh my
Good
God.
luck.
Oh, sorry, can I just squeeze on the agree side?
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, Canada, when they send foreign aid, something that I really noticed about all of the countries is that Canada was there. And that is a little bit of an issue because when a Western country is in the Middle East and there is no supervision, a bunch of oil gets lost and a bunch of money gets made. So I think that Canada does have sort of an obligation to give some foreign aid funding to some of these countries because if I'm being honest, Canada, they kind of screwed some of these countries over. So I personally think like, yeah, we have involvement in the countries that we send foreign aid to.
Yeah, see, I hear you, right? That's a moral thing to do. But what's more prudential for any reasonable person and another moral thing to do, equally moral, is to take care of your own people first. And then if you have enough wealth to give out, do it later.
I have two things I want to ask you. The first one is, this is like a sins of the father type of argument here. So I'm curious, how far back does this go? How like at which war does it stop? Right? If we're going to offer reparations to these countries,
Right.
at what point does it stop? And then after you answer that, I'll ask you your next question.
Okay. So I personally think that these countries, we did help steal a bunch of oil, right? We still have to recompensate them for that. So, and then also we did participate in unfortunately shooting some people
Sorry,
over
when
there.
you say steal, what do you mean?
Well, we helped the Americans go there. We peace kept for the Americans. In fact, did you know that there's more Canadians that actually died at one point in time than Americans? In fact, it was, it's actually pretty sad that we had more peacekeepers die because they were just there peacekeeping, right? They thought they were doing the right thing. But then you question, why are they there in the Middle East? And then like, I'm not one of those guys who, you know, thinks in this like whole rabbit hole where it's like, oh, you know, it's the CIA or it's some psyop, right? But at the same time, why are we there? But to answer your question, how far back do I think the reparations have to go? I think we have to pay back.
Like dollar for dollar. Like every dollar we've taken, we have to return.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pretend like I have the amount, right?
Of course.
Yeah, but,
Right.
but I also,
But the concept is we should pay every dollar back.
and I do think that obviously the Americans should do their share too.
My opinion is there should be a system of checks and balances because if you're sending money to a country that is, you know, ineptly corrupt, just, you know, straight up corrupt, you keep sending billions of dollars to them, there's no means of accountability. Okay, what are you doing with this money? Okay, the last amount we give you, what did you do with it? How have you made the lives of your people better?
But just to also touch regarding the foreign aid, there's that famous adage like, how can you take care of other individuals when you can't take care of yourself? In Canada, the issue is that right now, Canada, just recently, now I read like some kind of local CBC article, they saying they're donating billions of dollars to the Ukraine, and I understand being compassionate is a great thing, but compassion has its limits. And Canada needs to focus on its own citizens right now, because by giving billions of dollars of foreign aid, which I understand is compassion, and it comes at a cost, and it comes at the cost of Canada's pocketbooks. And the thing is that significant taxes are going to be raised, and who's going to be funding these taxes? Us, the young generation, which then further makes the Canadian dream difficult.
I can build wealth in Canada.
I come back, man.
Yeah, just had to make some room.
I wanna ask first, for you guys, what does wealth even mean?
I think it's security for the future and what, like, not having a certain number in your bank account, but more about how can you create the most amount of opportunity with the money that is coming into your bank account.
Most Canadians who have built wealth, maybe, you know, building a company, building a business, just having one, they've had to more or less sell outside, right? They've had to sell outside. The Rogers family, for example, they have a lot of businesses in the US, have a lot of businesses in Europe. Actually, a very, very small portion of the revenues for the businesses come from Canada. Most of it have come from outside, come from selling to outsiders, selling to the Americans, selling to Europeans. The point of what I'm saying is, anyone aspiring to build like really tangible wealth, Canada is not really the ideal place to do it. And there's a lot of metrics to back that up. That's just my argument.
Yeah, on metrics, the metrics depend on who you are, right? Like in comparison to the US and maybe 1 or 2 European countries, maybe Germany, maybe one of the small ones. I can't remember the name, I can't pronounce the names. But in comparison to most of the other countries in the world, Canada pays a lot more, right? So to build wealth, Canada is a great place. Like you can get a great job. You can choose to cut costs to a point where you're saving a good chunk of your income even after the taxes. Is it good compared to the US? No. Is it good compared to everybody else? Yes. And so the point becomes, okay, building wealth is good, but why am I still upset? Why are people still upset? It's because keeping wealth is not easy. It's because everything costs too much. It's because you can't trust your own assets, because what you pay into CPP with the guarantee of it helping you in your old age, they'll run out of that money. Carney's budget already included that as an asset, by the way, not a liability. But the government should be paying that out. So it's a liability for the government, but they've kept the money. They're letting you know right now.
I feel like building wealth now, maybe back then, in our parents' or grandparents' generation, that might have been a reality, because for them, they were able to work like a part-time job, like a clean tables as a waiter or waitress, and be able to pay for their tuition. But now, because tuition has skyrocketed astronomically, a lot of young generation people like us and the even younger generations, we're going to be going to school with increasing tuition costs, where now we're forced to take on more and more school loans. And then once you graduate with significant loans, like you have to pay off the debt plus the interest. And then, and to save up for the down payment, to save up for a vehicle, save up for your retirement, it's like, how can you really get those things rolling when you have significant debts to pay off? Not to mention, as you guys probably, since you've gone to a lot of universities, on the campuses, a lot of credit card companies go have their booth set up where they're giving out credit cards to 18 and 19-year-olds who don't know any better about a credit card that could easily get racked up with 20% interest rate, which then further holds the young generation back.
I think that, I don't think that we're not arguing that it's not difficult. I think we all agree that it's difficult, but I do think it's possible. Yeah. It may be exceptionally challenging, and may be exceptionally challenging for a majority of Canadians, but the question was, can you build wealth? You can, right? I do think you can. I think if an individual can learn to invest smart, that challenges they'll have financially will probably, you'll realize these gains when you're much older. It's just gonna suck when you're young. I invested in crypto early on and it paid off, right? So I got lucky. I didn't know what I was doing. Honestly.
He had money to invest.
If you don't,
yeah, I was working in high school though.
Sorry, I don't mean to interject, but look at the very words you just said. Like, I happened to invest in crypto before the big boom, but it's like that was mostly luck though, like because
that was luck for me.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I wasn't lucky.
And the thing is, to be able to have the money to invest to begin with, it's like probably like you were able to work a job during high school, when a lot of these youngsters nowadays, they don't even have the opportunity to even build up like an investment base where they can even invest in cryptocurrencies or invest in the stock market. You know what I mean? Like, because as young people, like those are the most affordable investment vehicles to be able to build wealth. But the thing is that, like I said, maybe back in our parents and grandparents' area, that used to be a reality when they can work their waiter or waitress job or work at a grocery store and pay for their school and graduate without any debt. Maybe you have some savings left over. But
so is your opinion that it's impossible?
I'm not saying that it's impossible, but the thing is that it is significantly more difficult for the younger generation, and that I feel that no one can really dispute that, because.
Oh, I agree with you.
So
I agree with you, bro. I'm not saying it's not really hard. It's really, really hard.
And it's way more difficult in Canada compared to, I'd say, maybe the G7 countries. It's way more difficult.
For sure.
We're the worst performer.
Canada ranks last on most of the metrics to use.
Yeah, like you said, it's not the question of could it be better. Of course it could. It could be so much better. This sucks, right?
Yeah, it sucks.
But it's a question of where else.
Yeah, where else? Exactly, especially as immigrants.
The next prompt is, most people in Canada are happy.
I think I agree. I think he agrees.
No, you agree?
Like when I talk with my friends, like I have a lot of friends who are like from the Philippines, and they do go back, and they always tell me that their life here is so much more better than it would be in the Philippines. And it's not that they're dissing the Philippines per se, but here they get so many more opportunities. Like I know we kind of bag on like the American dream, or sorry, the Canadian dream, about like how our opportunities are not really coming to us. But at the same time, man, it's worse some other countries. No diss to them.
I think, so for myself, I moved from the Philippines, funny enough. So if you want to diss about the Philippines, we can talk about that later. No, jokes aside. I think the thing with happiness is, similar to what I asked about wealth, it really depends for the person. And for myself, as someone who went from another country, grew up in another country, then moved over here, what I've been pushed to do is to redefine what happiness even means in the first place. Because in the Philippines, the thing is, my experience is, and what I took for granted, it's a very collectivist society where living with your parents, living with extended family is very normal. Over here, that's not the case. The very first time that my wife and I arrived here in Canada, it was dead quiet. We were so used to hearing karaoke, people singing, drinks. It was annoying then, but we realized in that moment, we kind of missed that. Does this mean that we regret moving here to Canada? No. It just means that our definition of happiness is changing, which is part and parcel of moving to another country. In the present, am I happy? No. But it could come. It's just that maybe a lot of people in Canada are adjusting to that definition of happiness. And I think aside from just immigrants, it's very difficult to be happy with just how society is in general. And if you look at it from a very realistic standpoint, lots of people have lost their smile. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, the question is flawed. The question is flawed because like most people so there's a lot of confirmation bias, right?
Yeah.
Like I stand here as somebody in the red zone who's lost all my friends to other countries. A lot of them went back to their country of origin, even if they were born Canadians. People who moved for better work opportunities to the States, and that's not easy to do. So they had to do a lot of thinking and sacrificing to move to a different place. So I don't know a single person who wants to be here and isn't stuck in some sort of legal jumbo. It's like, oh, can't get the right to work in a different country yet, or doesn't have a job offer to move there. I don't know a single person who is happy except for people who've already achieved what the ideal is, like getting to have kids and like a house you own, like a corner or a small apartment, is such a dream-like existence for us, but it used to be normal, right? So if you were born after that generation of people where the norm became idealized and sold as a dream that can't be accomplished, it doesn't, it rubs me the wrong way. It rubs me, it's not good, it's not good.
But yeah, no worries.
Here's my perspective. I'm speaking as someone that grew up here, and my heritage, I'm Métis, so I'm properly Canadian, right? Generations go back millennia, right? My Indigenous side and then my European side is Scottish. Canada, with what I grew up with, and I'm speaking about, probably speaking on behalf more of white people, to be honest. But this was a majority white country growing up, right?
Yeah.
Is I would say that a lot of us feel a sense of our country is not what we grew up with, right? And this isn't to be giving any flack to immigrants or anything like that. It's not the point of what I'm saying. It's just that the identity of being a Canadian is not what it used to be. Being a Canadian used to be about, we had a lot of stereotypes with the winter, right? Skating, playing hockey, we were a lot more friendly together. It was a very high trust society. There was a real sense of community, and being Canadian meant something. There was an identity with it. There was a culture associated with the way people spoke and treated each other. That was Canadian. We were a very high trust society before. And I think in the last decade or so, that identity is gone. It's like a postmodern version of the Canadian identity, postmodern Canadian identity. Why not call it just that? So I think for us, that's kind of where we would say that we don't feel happy anymore. This is people that grew up here. So that's my perspective.
Yeah, I just moved because, I think it's also very interesting because Western society is actually really sad nowadays, and it's very lonely, and people are in Canada are sure they might be happy with like what's going on and where they live and what their circumstances are, but deep down they're very lonely, and it's lacking that socialness that I've seen traveling in other countries, that people are very communal, and it's less
The
about
West
that.
used to be the best. People used to want to come from all over the world to come here, and now the topic of remigration is a thing.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
People immigrate here, they realize how much it sucks, and they go back to their original country because they're like, it's actually better where I'm from. That's crazy.
Everything we've talked about today, what keeps you in Canada? And if you were to change anything in Canada to fix it, what would you do?
Yeah, see, I think a lot. I think a lot about what can be and what I can do to get there. And so the question becomes, where else? Like, what else could I do? And Canada still is the best answer.
I think for me, why I'm still here is that I owe it to my ancestors. Right? My ancestors on both sides of my family, Indigenous and Scottish, they came here at the inception of Canada, or were here prior to that. And I feel like I owe it to them to try my best to actually make a difference in Canada and try my best to advocate for true Canadian values.
Moved here with my wife and kids from Nigeria, and Canada has certainly given us much more opportunities than we had back home.
Having those things, having an economy that works, having a government that's pretty corrupt at the higher levels, but usually serves the people in the most general sense.
2 simple words for me. Job's not finished. When LeBron James was down 3-1 in the NBA Finals, did he give up? No. He went out there, Oracle Arena, put up 40 points. Then Game 6, put up a masterpiece again. Then in Game 7, with the game on the line, he blocked Iguodala, even if the world was on the line.
That's not even glaze.
As much as we like to criticize Canada for its shortcomings, it's still a great country and has a fantastic system. And growing up here, I've gone through the school system and everything else like that, and it's a great system. But you know, in sort of like a Democratic or Republican National Convention style, I want to conclude with is that until we hold our government and politicians accountable, and we see some real systemic improvement, then I think that otherwise Canada is actually still a fantastic country, and that we like to sometimes unfairly criticize.
So there's a lot of stuff that still works. It's a matter of, is this the best version of it? Of course, it hasn't been in a pretty long time, but it's very easy to fix. I think everyone knows what needs to be done, but it seems harsh, and because we conflate American politics for Canadian politics, everyone's on some side of the aisle. That doesn't make sense because Canadians are not the same.
Why I stay in Canada is because it's home for me, and I really couldn't see myself anywhere else in the world. And I've traveled extensively, and I just always return back home. And I think that Canada has that sense of community here, that I have family here, I've got ties here for generations, and I think that that's why I'm staying.
This is the best country in the world, and I would fight for this country, I would protect this country, and I would die for this country.
If there are some things that I could change, I think there are some hard decisions we have to make. I think that we have to look into remigration. We have just simply too many people here for the infrastructure we have. I think that we need to consider putting on some harsh sentences for our politicians that engage in corruption, because they're not going to stop until they face real consequences. And we need to work on developing our culture so that we're homogenous once again.
I would say for the future, I think there's so much that needs to be done right now. And for starters, it really belongs to what's happening in the economy and slowly starting to fix that, and slowly working on what's going on in our government that's still very much an issue, even though it might seem perfect from the outside.
Of course, a lot of this could be better. The system could be tweaked. There could be room for, working class to be more productive, but overall, it's a great country and it's a great place to live and raise a family.
We need to stick together, right? In the military, there's the stereotypical no man left behind concept. But I think we need that more than ever in our society, because I see people who claim they love Canada, they hate the people that are here. And some of it might be justified, some of it might not be. But what we must do is we must reach a common goal. We must have bipartisanship in our people, and we must have it in our government. And that means taking our government accountable, but also our own people accountable.
If LeBron James didn't give up, my Pookie, my king, then I'm not gonna give up. I'm gonna put up 40 points for Canada sooner or later.
What are you doing if you're not clicking the link in the description down below? Apply! Submit your resumes if you want to be on the show just like me. We have a ton of episodes coming out. Make sure you apply, like, subscribe, share this video with all your friends, and make sure to stay tuned for more.